Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you everyone for joining. Shawn Howarth is an introduction. That's who I am. I became president CEO in around middle of last year, June, July of 2022. So I'm excited because I get to describe what I like in the company, both as an executive and also as a shareholder in the business as well. So just most recently, we announced the acquisition of the past producing La Negra mine. It's a silver, copper, zinc, lead brownfields project in Querétaro, Mexico. It's about central Mexico, about 2 hours northwest of Mexico City. We acquired that for $20 million in equity consideration from Orion Mine Finance, or we're in the process of acquiring it with contingent payments on the basis of returning this to commercial production. Our target is around 12 to 18 months to return this to production. There's about 10 kilometers of existing infrastructure, underground infrastructure at the mine. There is a 25 or 3,000 ton per day concentrator, and all of the relevant surface infrastructure, roads, tailings facilities to be able to return this to production in a relatively, I'd say, not aggressive, but a comfortable time frame. Critical to the transaction, we're in the process of raising $10 million US to fund the de-risking process. About a third of that capital will go to the detail engineering, doing the mine scheduling and detailed planning to be successful with the next phase of the restart. A third of that's going to go into exploration, drilling really for the, I'd say, infill drilling, but also just as equally important, looking at some of the step-out drilling and targeting mineralization in areas that we know that the mine is open and historically has been underexplored. And a third of that will go into working capital as well. The timeline, 12 to 18 months. We're currently capped at around $15 million, but I'd probably look through the transaction and say once you adjust for the equity to Orion plus the fundraise, we're about a market capitalization pro forma of around $50 million. So that's what we're starting out with. Currently trading around 38 cents per share Canadian on the TSX exchange. The transaction was announced at 48 cents, so currently trading an attractive discount to where that deal was originally announced. But more than that, we actually have an exciting portfolio of projects. So I'll focus a lot on La Negra, but I don't want to discount, as Tom had mentioned, Silver City in Freiburg, Germany, Eastern Germany, a exciting exploration project where we've done about 12,000 meters of drilling. We've drilled 40 holes, of which we've intersected mineralization across 37 of those holes, defined a 38-kilometer strike extent, and return intercepts as much as 1,000 grams per ton silver equivalent over a meter to 1.3 meter intervals. So a really exciting, I'd say, greenfields, but in a brownfields, 800-plus year mining history of Eastern Germany, focusing on base metals and projects like this. So a very supportive mining region and a very, I would say, a very experienced group and understands the process of mining. So we're lucky to have a project there. We've spent about $10 million to earn into that project. We own 100% of it now. We also own Kilgore and Oakley, which is epithermal gold projects in Idaho. There's 1 million ounces at Kilgore that we've defined, or we acquired that for $20 million in the acquisition of Otis Gold in 2020. Since then, we've spent about $5 million on exploration and embarked on a 5,000 meter drill program last year, of which we've completed around 2,100 meters so far. And the results that have come back are reconfirming a lot of the high-grade structure that we see at that project. I think it's originally envisaged as an open pit, heap leachable project, but the potential to also look at this and examine some of the higher grade core within the project and is a potential to pivot it to an underground or look at it in another light is critical as well. And what defined the company Platosa was a silver, lead, zinc mine. We produced at Platosa from 2005 up until basically Q3 of last year. That mine is now on care and maintenance. There's mineralization there. There's potential with a broader property on a joint venture or earn-in agreement. But I'd say, given the return, it's not justified at current silver prices to continue to produce from there. But there's always opportunity to return to that in the future, pending metals prices. So our focus very much is La Negra, but we have a rich portfolio of silver and gold projects throughout, I'd say, North America and the world. So when we want to define Excellon, what I look at, I kind of want to harp on, we've got a $50 million pro forma market capitalization. Once we get through the transaction, we raise the capital. And what does that get us? Well, we're starting with with the La Negra. A preliminary economic assessment was completed on La Negra in March of 2022, defining $130 million in value at a $22 per ounce silver price. And that really sets the baseline. That's at a 2,500 ton per day operation over a 7.5 year mine life. Where we take that from here is the 12 to 18 months, the de-risking plan to grow this into, a 3.5 million ounce silver equivalent producer over those 7 years. And that baseline value is the $132 million that you see on that slide. On top of that, where we're taking the exploration is to define out a 700 meter by 700 meter exploration area that intersects some of the historic near surface structure controlled mineralization and also the skarn style mineralization at depth. I think the skarn for us is a game changer. It opens up widths, it opens up tonnage, and really could potentially change what this project looks like from a current form of a 2,500 ton per day project. Doing that drilling is critical for us, and that's part of this budget for the $10 million. And that defines some of the upside growth, defines the upside potential in finding higher grade material to put into the mine plan. It defines potential. It's set by context. 700 by 700 meter is about 2/3 of the existing mineralized footprint. So you're talking about a real potential for expansion of the project in the existing mineralization. And then on top of that, you look for is also the portfolio optionality. As I mentioned, we spent $10 million in Saxony silver. We've spent $5 million in exploration plus $20 million in acquisition costs for Kilgore. Bringing some of that capital forward really redefines this business. I don't think a lot of other juniors have that opportunity and the optionality to take that and grow, a business and be able to fund that back into other projects like La Negra. So just a quick snapshot of the ore body itself. This is existing infrastructures, kind of the black areas that are defined. There's a 2-kilometer ramp that comes into the mine. As I mentioned, it produced for about 30 years. Historically, Peñoles had mined it. They focused on some of the higher grade, the near surface structure controlled mineralization. Subsequent to that, Orcana took over and was producing up to 2015 at consistent throughput rates of 2,500 tons per day. So the mine is capable of producing at that. The current mineralization is around 8 million tons indicated and inferred, 2.5 million indicated, 6.5 million inferred, at a grading of around 60 to 80 grams per ton silver, or on a silver equivalent basis of around 200 grams, just over 200 grams. So an attractive way to start the project, but the growth that we see is not only in the PEA, but also in the potential to expand that mineralized footprint. The target annual production is around 1.5 million ounces of silver, and I'd say about 3.5 million ounces on a silver equivalency basis. This is just a snapshot of the surface. It's a brownfields asset, as I mentioned. 10 kilometers of existing infrastructure sitting there already. Where we would be restarting the mine, if I bring this back again, we'd be restarting, it's kind of near the bottom, right below where the existing infrastructure is. So you're not spending a lot to get to new mineralized ore bodies. You're just building on top of what's already there. You have the tailings facility fully permitted. You have the mill, 2,500 tons per day, capable. Refurbishment is required. The overall capital to get this thing into operation targeted is 21 million, according to the PEA. And there's just some snapshots of some of the existing long hole stoping that was done and the concentrator at surface. So to talk about the mineralization quickly at La Negra, 2 defining features. You have this large intrusive that's defining the skarn style mineralization, where you're getting into much wider widths at depth. And then along surface, you're getting into the open kind of continuous high grade zones that historically have been spotty, but it's a carbonates package that the view is that a lot of this is open and can continue to be connected. Historically, the mine was underexplored. The focus was on maximizing cash flow. It was producing at a time when silver was $15 per ounce and money wasn't going into the asset in the way it should. So we're taking a relook. Our focus is the yellow area, 700 by 700 meter kind of resource expansion potential area, and taking that information and growing on top of that. We also want to look at this as a potential as a high grade mine beyond just 60 grams per ton silver or 200 plus grams per ton silver equivalent. Historically, intercepts here ranging anywhere between 500 up to 1,700 grams per ton. I mean, this is what we're looking for and say, is there a way to look at the opportunity and expand on the ore body? That grows production, that improves our profitability, obviously, starting with the PEA, of course. So where we'd be restarting the mine, kind of in that golden area, as I mentioned, near the bottom, right in the skarn. It's a 250 by 80 meter section. You're 30, 40 meters below existing workings, those gray areas. And there's intercepts there between 15 to 30 meters, 270 grams per ton. So you confident that the mine can be restarted in successful areas. And we'll focus a lot of our infill drilling and a little bit of step out to define that area, because that could be 1 year's worth of mineralized material right there. So when you think about, is this mine capable of producing, you know it is. You're right below existing infrastructure, stable ground conditions. It's all limestone hosted rock, so minimal ground support required, and the ventilation and requirements are all there to restart successfully. And of course, if you look into the opportunities, you could work around all the mines. I mean, what we'd be doing with our exploration is really building off of the existing infrastructure. You're not drilling 1,000-meter holes from surface. You're drilling 200 to 300 meters to get into new areas of mineralization, so relatively efficient, and you're building it off of existing drives that are there to be able to drill. So you target some of those higher grade where you think the continuity is, and historically is just there's never been step out drilling done to test where those zones of mineralization could continue. And then if you bring it all back, I mean, what does it mean? The yellow area is all that. It's like the dike emplacement, the structure controlled mineralization. You have the intrusive where you get these wider zones of mineralization. The intrusive has a surface expression of 1.2 kilometers to 500 meters in width. So it's a massive intrusive. We're only starting to unmap a lot of this now, but that is really what changes this from, I'd say, 10 million tons to something that could be much larger, and that's what gets us excited. And on the other side of the intrusive, on the eastern side, you can see in the southeast flank, you can see that mineralization was intersected on the other side. It just hasn't been explored properly. All the work has always been done on the other side of the intrusive. So that gets us excited, and you can start to see where the 10,000 meters of drilling will really focus on, and that's part of the capital program that we're putting together. And what does it all mean? I mean, the narrative that we use is the La Colorada skarn, Pan American silver. That was historically it was a more structure controlled near surface mineralization. And really it didn't intersect that skarn until they were down 1,000, 1,500 meters. So when we look at where we are, and that green area is kind of our interpretation of the skarn mineralization, just continue to explore at depth where it's all open still. It's is really a significant amount of potential. And given the widths, it could add just a lot more to the overall project. So as you see, I mean, kind of recap, critical mineral exposure, you're looking at silver, copper, zinc, and lead, fully permitted to restart production, 2,500 tons per day is where the PIA starts. Valuations based on 3 million ounces of silver, but the exploration is going to drive where that goes, whether it's an increase in the mine life or whether you're improving your grades and improving your production as well. And finally, we also have this exciting optionality in a portfolio of 1 million ounces in Idaho. We've got to figure out how to get value from that. And also Saxony silver, Eastern Germany, where we've had fantastic exploration results so far. Trying to get value from that is critical. And that's it.